Hey, Jesus fans, welcome to True North Podcast, where we grow closer to God together. This podcast was brought to you by Solid Rock Church in Irving, Texas, and our host, Pastor Ed Snyder. To find out more about this podcast, visit our website at truenorthdfw.org. Now let's join Pastor Snyder in a new direction and a new destination.
And welcome to True North Podcast, where you're going to receive another exciting episode here with your host, yours truly, Pastor Snyder. It's a great day, and it's a great day to live, breathe, and enjoy Jesus. So we're going to be talking about unhealthy relationships, how to handle toxic relationships. It's the episode that you all have been waiting for and wanting to get a hold of. So here it is. We're going to get ready, get you a pad of paper, a pen, grab a cup of coffee, and we'll be right back. Again, thank you for joining us here at True North. We are deeply, deeply grateful for all of our listeners. The numbers are just awesome of what's happening with True North Podcast. And of course, we give all glory to God and thankful that you are joining us today. And somewhere in this podcast that I can say something under the anointing of the Spirit of God, and God can touch you and heal you in this podcast. So let's get started in today's subject of how to handle toxic relationships. We last week, if you heard that podcast, if you haven't, go back and listen to it. It was the 9 levels of relationship and how sometimes we get confused with our relationships and what category they are in. We put them in a category they really don't belong, like a person that you cannot trust. You try to make a best friend out of, or the last category, number 9, is toxic relationships. And sometimes we don't even realize that they are toxic. And so we try to shove them into other areas of our life, and it's just not working. So today we're going to go to work on that category: unhealthy relationships, toxic relationships, and what to do with them. So we're going to get started with the steps really to cut off an unhealthy relationship. Now, folks, this is something that's not really pleasant. If you knew me, if you know who I am, or been around me, I love people. I love everybody. I do my best to see the good in everyone, no matter how bad they are on the surface. And of course, with my calling and who I am, a real bad person, I want to try to dig in and try to help them fix the issues and become what they really can become through God. And so, but there are situations, as we talked about again last week in the podcast. And again, if you haven't listened to that podcast, please go back and grab that podcast of 9 levels of relationships. And I think I mentioned, and I'll just rehearse it again here for you today, and that is when you have something that's poisonous, toxic, all the only thing that is accomplished is every time you mess with it, you get poisoned, i.e. hurt, disappointed, crushed, and you walk away downhearted. You walk away even probably sometimes in tears because you really want this relationship to work. But the problem is you're dealing with a toxic person, and it's just not going to happen until they change. And so you're going to have to go to the extreme and basically cut off that unhealthy relationship, because what's happening? It's dragging you down. It's causing you to be depressed. It's dinging your self-esteem, your confidence. And so relationships is all about helping other people become better. So when I go into a relationship, a friendship, a working relationship, the benefit that I'm going to receive, or at least should receive, is that I'm going to be better because of it. If you're in a relationship and it's boring or it's just average, okay, don't cut that person off. You may love them, care about them. They may even be a family member. But the valuable relationships that we should be building in our life is where when we're around them, we walk away better. We walk away at least enlightened. So again, we've got to look a hard look on our relationships and the 3 steps that it takes to cut off an unhealthy relationship. Of course, first and foremost, you must identify and accept the reality of an out of balance relationship. That's the absolute. It's just like anything in addictions, that whether it's pornography, drugs, alcohol, or if you've got anger issues, the only way you're going to start to get help is that you have to identify it and admit that I've got a problem. Well, same thing here in an unhealthy relationship. You have got to identify to the fact that this is not healthy. I'm not benefiting from it. In fact, I'm getting tore down from it. And so at times you need to take stock of the situation, admit it's just not working. Okay. And all your efforts to help or rehabilitate a person, really not to your credit, but it has failed. So at that point is you need to give that person over to God. And notice I didn't say that you give up on that person. To give up is to walk away and say, I don't care what happens to you. To give a person over to God is to walk away and say, I have done all I can do. I'm entrusting you to God from this point. So again, we never totally give up, but we do have to cut it off and say, okay, God, that person's yours. And whatever you've got to do to save that person, do it and keep them in prayer. All right. I want to make sure that you understand that I'm not an advocate of just cutting people off and let them die. You know, we never want to give up, but we also got to look out for our own emotional, spiritual, mental, and of course, physical health. We've got to be a healthy person, and we got to put ourselves in environments where we grow and we prosper, not only in ourselves, but that especially in our relationship with God. And so we're not cutting them off totally. We're stopping the relationship and handing them totally over to God. The second step in cutting off an unhealthy relationship is don't try to be God to another person. Okay, there's a huge difference between helping a person and carrying a person. You're not God. You can't carry them. You can help them. You can be a blessing to them, but don't enter into an enabling relationship in which you come to feel responsible for that person's failure or success. So again, don't try to be God to another person. That's where you've got to cut it off. If you're feeling like you have got to carry that person and do the miraculous, honey, I'm sorry, you don't have the miraculous in you. God does. And that's where, like step number one, we hand them over to God, and then God can do a miracle because of your prayer, but you're not getting poisoned or affected by this unhealthy relationship. Number 3 is become comfortable with criticism. Okay. If you don't end a relationship, everyone will not be happy with your decision. Or excuse me, let me rephrase that. If you do end a relationship, everyone's not going to be happy with that decision. There's going to be, oh man, why don't you talk to that person anymore? You haven't called them and they're really hurt about that and da-da-da-da. I'm sorry. It's just, I've got to have some healthy relationships and they're dragging it down. For that matter, not everybody will be pleased with you at that point or regarding anything for that matter. So get comfortable with people going to come out against you, get some blowback from that decision. But again, you have got to keep the priority straight. It's not healthy for you to be in this at this time. Now, I'm not saying it's not going to come back around because remember, we're not giving up on them. We're giving them over to God and we're praying for them. And then maybe if they will listen to God and God allow God to work in their life, this relationship could come back online. So again, we've got to realize where we are, but get ready because nobody can please all the people all the time, everywhere. That's a little bit of Abraham Lincoln right there. And I have always said, haters do one thing very, very well. they hate. Okay. So if you're going to excel in the kingdom of God, if you're going to do great things for God and his kingdom, if you're going to be successful in whatever area of your life, get ready. The haters are on the way. I have haters, and it's okay. If you want to hate on me, that's all right, because I know me and I know what the truth is. So it doesn't matter what the haters say. So again, number 3, become comfortable with criticism. Now, the criticism, one more thing here and we'll move on. The criticism, you have got to be able to decipher that criticism. If that criticism is true, you need to fix something. But if it's just criticism because they don't know who you are, or it's criticism because they're just stuck on stupid, then you can brush that off. Keep on going. All right. Because if you've got haters, that means you're progressing. Let's put a spiritual application to it. If the enemy comes up against you, you are on the right path. You are doing the right thing. You are making things progress because the devil's upset with you and trying to come against you and attack you. If you don't have any attacks, if you don't have any pushback in the spirit realm when living for God, you're not on the right path. You need to look at your life very, very closely. Luke chapter 6, verse 26 tells us that woe unto you when all men speak well of you, for so did their fathers to the false prophets. Occasionally, you need to recognize the hurting people. Sometimes, I would say most of the time, hurt people. So hurting people hurts people. And you need to be brave enough and godly enough to say, this relationship isn't helping you or me. This relationship isn't healthy, and we've got to put an end to it. So trust God to help you recognize when a relationship is becoming detrimental to your business, to your ministry, to your health, to your family, to you overall. Trust God to give you the courage to end the relationship and provide with broad enough shoulders and thick enough skin to take the criticism that you're going to face. Number 4 is progressively end unhealthy relationships. There's things like, we shed our skin because it's dead skin and the body automatically shaves it off, drops it off. A snake sheds its skin, I'm not sure, every 7 years or something like that, because it's dead skin and it's new. So you've got to realize that you're going to get new relationships in your life, and sometimes you're going to have to shed, you're going to have to cut off or end the unhealthy relationships. It takes emotional energy really to end this relationship that's not healthy. And if you cut every unhealthy relationship out of your life at once, you're likely going to be overwhelmed by the loss. So don't just go haywire with a butcher knife and start cutting unhealthy relationships out of your life. Do it one at a time and do it correctly. Do it easy, and don't leave a bunch of mess in your path as you're going through. Well, Pastor Snyder told me to cut off all my relationships. You're out. You're done. Goodbye. Don't do that. Just let's do it correctly. All of my relationships are the ones in which there is a mutual give and take. It's a mutual blessing. It's a mutual edification. And I'm on the same wavelength as those that are close to me when it comes to values, beliefs, and goals. Number 5, don't burn bridges. Now, this relates really to what I was talking about in number 1 and really number 2. Don't burn the bridge. In other words, when you cut out an unhealthy relationship, don't cut it completely off. Again, we're giving God an opportunity by taking them to prayer, handing them over to God for God to do something in their life. So when you dissolve a relationship, don't do it in anger. Don't do it in bitterness. Don't do it harshly, gently, lovingly, kindly. There is a way to walk away without words of hatred or criticism or placing blame, all right? And at the same time, walk away from an unhealthy relationship with the full intent not to revisit that relationship in the future, but allow God to lead you to have an affiliation with that person down the line, because again, you don't know what God has for you in the future. We don't know what God has for them in the future as well. So it may be the fact that you've got something going to do in their life, but God's got to get some junk out of the way for you to be able to minister and speak to that person and make this a healthy relationship. All right. Again, we've got to understand about when something has to be done. All right. Now, let's see. We are about halfway through our podcast, and I do want to get into 10 types of toxic people. All right. And honestly, folks, I'm really talking about how to handle toxic relationships. All right. So here we go. 10 types of toxic people. And again, earlier last week, did I mention, if you haven't got the episode last week, go back to the website at truenorthdfw.org or whatever listening platform you're on listening to this podcast. Go back to 9 Levels of Relationship and listen to it. All right. I mentioned at number 9, again, the toxic relationship. What does it look like? And studying the following list that we're getting ready to go into and applying it is going to be tremendous. All right. So here's how I identify that. Number 1, and probably number 1 is this type of toxic person is because it's the most popular, and that is the controller. All right. This person is a master manipulator and a constant controller. They want to be in charge, not just of their own lives, but your life and everybody else's life. They watch you like a hawk, ready to pounce on every flaw, problem, stupid mistake. You know, they're the ones like, how can you be so stupid in doing thus and so? They micromanage down to the last detail. Am I sounding familiar to somebody perhaps in your life? Okay. They have trouble letting go, so they don't. They gotta hoard. They're kind of like emotional hoarders. They gotta hoard everything. You know, there has been some tremendous people in my life in the past that are really not there anymore. Not because it was a problem, not because we're talking about what we're talking about today, that it became toxic. It's just life moved on. I was blessed then with that relationship, and God did something for me. I did something for them through God, and we moved on. Controllers can't do that. Controllers have got to hang on to everything. They will not let it go. And so that's why, thus, they're called a controller. Number 2, the second toxic type of person is the abuser. Boy, some of us are all too familiar with this one. This is the person is desperately needy inside, and it takes it out on you. They take it out on the world around them through their own experiences of internalized hurt. They become angry, vicious, and cruel to those who say they care about the most. You know, it's like what we talked about earlier about anger. They always hurt the ones they should not hurt at all. These people need help from counseling, outside sources. They need healing from the Lord. And if you find yourself in the home of abuser, get help now. Don't wait. Don't make up more excuses. Don't sit there and say, well, they really didn't mean it. Yes, they did. And you are the victim of it. So don't stay in a potentially dangerous situation with the false hope that you can somehow change their old patterns of abuse. It's not up to you. Protect your life, protect your spiritual man, protect your emotions, protect those that live in with you in your care, and get away from that abuser. All right. Number 3, too easily angered. Okay. Now these people, they're the ones that's got the hair trigger. They're the ones that you walk on eggshells around. You're afraid to say something because you don't want to upset them. What kind of life is that? Really, what kind of life is that? Okay, this person, again, is one you always feel like you have to tiptoe, like you just don't know what's going to set them off. You can say peanut butter and off they go. All right. These people become easily irritated at the smallest things, and which is a sure sign. Okay. There's a deep rooted problem inside them that's constantly causing the turmoil inside them. And so they're best known to throw things, hit things on their way, or spout off angry words. They can never get back. They yell, they scream, they cuss. You know, you may never see them on the ball fields, the golf courses, the stressful office meetings, or even on the highways. You may see them there because that's where the stress is high and they can't take it. All right. These people demonstrate not easily smooth fits of rage or out of control temper tantrums that closely resemble to the pattern of a 2-year-old. So again, watch out for the easily angered person. The next one, of course, is the bully. And this person can be subtle. They outright offensive in their attempts to bully. But either way, they desire to dominate and make themselves look powerful. You know, when you sometimes these people are passive aggressive. That's when they're really being nice. And so they have a strong need to feel better and look better than those around them. So they choose to bully anyone in their path. These are people that are of low self-esteem. They don't feel good about themselves, so they're going to step on you and make you look and feel inferior, so that they can feel like they are some, King Tut. All right. The bully, when you approach them about their nonsense, here's what you'll say. Oh, I was just kidding. I didn't really mean that. Come on, man. You got to get over that. I was just joking. That's what you'll hear. But it's not true, folks. They use the words fist, lies, and fears, but in all, they want to push others down, to exalt themselves, and stop at nothing to achieve their goal, the bully. Next up is the addict. Now, this person is addicted to a substance, a negative pattern of behavior, really that severely affects their well-being. Okay? Now, addiction, when we say addiction, it doesn't have to be drug or alcohol or pornography. They can be addicted, as I mentioned a minute ago, to a pattern of behavior. They're on a high because they feel inferior. They feel like they are the know-it-all. They've got that large ego that's as big as your house. Okay. Again, they need professional intervention. They need spiritual help. They need people who will be brave enough to speak the truth into their life, and not those who will feed their habit, enable their actions, or ignore their dangerous signs of addiction. Recognize, folks, that this is a toxic pattern and is more significant than just you. So again, the addict, and I'm looking at the time, and we've got to move on fast because we got a little more territory to cover here. All right. So we've got the addict, then we've got the negative. Again, the person who rarely has anything positive to say because they see everything in a negative slant and have no problem telling you why. The sun may be shining. It's high noon. There's not a cloud in the sky. It's a beautiful 72 degrees with a light breeze. And to them, it's getting ready to have a thunderstorm. It's dark. It's just they're negative. And folks, you're listening to a fella that doesn't do negative. If I'm around somebody that's negative, you will see me politely dismiss myself, and I'm out. I'm gone. I can't do the negative stuff. I could do real. I can deal with reality, but the whole negative approach, not for me. Next is the blamer. Okay. And of course, that really explains a lot just in their title. Again, this is the person is never to blame. It's always your fault. They will blame everything on others close to them because they can't handle the fact that they've done something wrong. Again, it leads back to self-esteem issues, low self-esteem. All right. Again, they've got to blame everybody else. They don't take responsibility for their own actions. And that is a real problem. Folks, you will never, ever win around this person. Next is the gossiper. All right. This person is always talking and usually about somebody else. They have an overriding need to be in the know because knowledge is power. All right. And so again, it's gossip. What they're doing is they're standing on somebody else to make themselves look taller. This is a toxic relationship. And so they tend to feel better while talking about others so they can somehow feel better about themselves. And here's something else. Here's a fair warning about this type of person. Be careful what you tell them, because if they talk about others to you, they're going to talk about you to others. The next one is arrogant. Okay, this person is proud, self-serving, and always right. They never want to be made the fool, but have no problem labeling others as foolish. They prey on the weak. They make themselves appear better. They're quick to judge, ready to offer their opinions, and are rude to others in more subservient positions. As you know, if you've read business, you know the greatest leader is the one that will speak to the janitor and ask how his or her day is going. All right, and the last one is the victim. All right, the victim. Not to be confused with those who had been authentically victimized in life and is seeking God's peace and healing. Instead, this person is one who tends to feel that they are always the victim in every situation throughout life. They continue to feel taken advantage of, forever needy, and always telling you what another has done to hurt them or how no one cares. You get the picture. Okay, folks, we've got about 4 minutes, and I am going to go just a tad over time because here's how you protect yourself from toxic people. Okay, now that we've identified who, we have looked at the categories, the 10 categories of toxic relationships. Let's learn how to protect ourselves from those types. Here we go. Number 1, recognize the toxicity in others or even in yourself. Okay, we all have hope to change through the grace and the goodness of God. But the first step there is to understand. Remember, in the first podcast we did covering Control the Beast, the book is The Power of Understanding. So the first step here is to understand that there's a need. And if the problem is with you, admit it, that you need help. And the first step in recovery is to admit it. So if the issue stems from within a family member or close friend, trying to walk with them in humility and with honesty, but letting them know how these patterns over time has made you feel. This is how to handle or how to protect yourself from toxic people. Number 2, set boundaries. All right. Set boundaries with tough love. Tough love can say enough. Okay. Tough love says, I care about you, but I care about me too. And I will not allow you to hurt me or those I love. You got to take a stand. Tough love is just that. You love that person, but you're being tough. This is it. This is the end of the road for you. No other person has the right to trample you down. Nobody. And make you feel inferior, abused, or bullied. Set the limits to protect yourself. Okay, you're not doing this to me. You're not allowed to say that to me. I am not going to listen to this. Okay, reject it because you love them. Now, again, it's not up to you to change the other person's behavior. It's on them, but it is up to you to protect your life and the lives of those you care about. So you need to adjust how much time you spend with certain people. Like sometimes not at all, okay? Cut it off. I had to do that to a couple of people in my life that are extremely dear because they were toxic. I love them. Anything happened to them, I'd be by their side. But outside of that, I'm done. Years later, those relationships came back around, healed up, and we're as close as ever. So again, there's hope. All right, number 3 is keep moving forward with your trust in God. He can accomplish great things through prayer. He can move mountains. He can change hearts. Anything is possible through his mighty power. And understanding that even though it is never up to you to make someone different, God sets you in their lives for a purpose, for a reason. And maybe the most significant goal is to be the light to them in their darkness, to extend to them gracious love and forgiveness, no matter what. And to show your strength in a mighty God by setting clear boundaries and allowing them to answer to him, not you, for the way they treat others. Number 4, and we are going to close out. Number 4 is believe God is for you. Believe God is for you. He loves you. He cares about you. And he has extraordinary things in store for your future. So as we close out this podcast, I want to be very, very clear. And any one of these categories can change. They can move up, they can move down in the 9 levels of relationship. And I pray that it never happens to you. The number 2 level of relationships is your spouse. And unfortunately, your spouse relationship can fall down to number 9. I pray it doesn't. However, the same situation can be healed and restored and come back to number 2 level. Be careful. Pray for God's direction. If needed, reach out to someone. I'm right here. You can get to me through our website at truenorthdfw.org. I'll be glad to spend some time with you. I'll be glad to help you in any way I can. If nothing else, I'll be glad to put you on my list of prayer and mention your name in prayer. So reach out and let's do this together. Go buy the book, Control the Beast, on Amazon.com. Control the Beast, Ed Snyder. It'll pop. And I pray that God does tremendous things in your life. Amen. We are overtime right now. And so I hope you enjoyed this episode of True North Podcast. If you would, please help us and spread the word. Send a link out to a friend. Hey, check this podcast out. Next week, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about rebuild what the beast destroyed. We're going to talk about rebuilding self-esteem. God bless you. Have a great week on purpose. And we'll see you next Wednesday.
Thank you for joining us at True North Podcast. You can find us on iHeartRadio or any other podcasting platform. If you want to have any questions, visit us at truenorthdfw.org. We'll catch y'all next week.